Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Daily English Podcast. I'm Anna, and honestly, I'm feeling super excited today because we have something really confusing but incredibly useful to explore together.
Hi, Anna. Hi, everyone. I'm Tom, and I already know this is going to hit a painful spot for many learners because seems and looks can quietly ruin your confidence when you speak.
Exactly, Tom, because sometimes you say something like, it seems nice, when you should say, it looks nice, and suddenly you feel unsure about your whole sentence.
Yes, and I remember telling someone, you seem tired, when I only meant that their eyes looked tired, and they thought I was judging their life.
Oh, wow, that's awkward. Because choosing between what you see and what you feel can completely change the meaning of what you say.
Yes, because when you use looks, you're talking about appearance, but when you use seems, you're talking about impression or feeling.
And many learners mix them up, especially in daily conversations when they want to sound natural but don't know which one fits the moment.
Like when you see dark clouds and say, it seems like rain instead of it looks like rain, and suddenly it feels slightly off.
Yes, or when someone is quiet and you say, he looks upset, when maybe you meant he seems upset.
That's why today's episode will help you clearly understand how to talk about what you see versus what you sense.
And before we dive deeper, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Daily English Podcast so you never miss useful conversations like this.
Yes, because your support helps us keep making practical lessons that actually solve real speaking problems.
Today, we'll break down simple patterns that show when to trust your eyes and when to trust your impression.
And we'll use everyday examples from work, friendships, and daily life so this doesn't feel like grammar, but real communication.
Because in real life, you constantly describe people, situations, weather, and feelings.
And choosing between seems and looks can make your sentence sound either natural or slightly strange.
Yes, and once you understand the difference, you'll stop second guessing yourself.
Instead of freezing mid-sentence, you'll speak smoothly and confidently.
And slowly, you'll start noticing how native speakers use these words naturally.
So stay with us as we untangle this subtle but powerful difference step by step.
Many learners struggle because they often use looks when they are actually talking about a feeling or impression, even though seems is the more natural choice when something is not clearly visible but only sensed internally.
A very common mistake happens when someone says, he looks tired, even though they're not seeing physical signs of tiredness, but are only judging from behavior, which would sound more accurate with seems tired.
Learners also tend to panic in conversations and choose randomly between seems and looks, which creates sentences that sound slightly unnatural, even if the grammar is technically correct.
Another problem appears when students believe both words are always interchangeable, so they say things like, it looks interesting, when they mean an internal judgment rather than a visual observation.
Sometimes learners rely too much on translation from their native language, and this causes them to use looks in emotional or abstract situations where seems fits better.
Many English learners think looks is safer because it feels more concrete, so they overuse it in situations that clearly need seems.
A funny confusion often happens when someone says, you look angry, when they only feel tension in the conversation rather than seeing facial signs.
Many learners frequently forget that seems reflects interpretation, while looks reflects appearance, and mixing these creates subtle but noticeable awkwardness.
Another challenge appears when describing situations like weather or mood because learners are unsure whether they are observing or assuming.
Students also hesitate when speaking quickly, and that hesitation makes them choose the wrong word simply to avoid silence.
In storytelling, learners often switch between seems and looks without realizing the meaning they are creating.
Many learners mistakenly say, it seems beautiful, when talking about visual beauty, which sounds strange because beauty is something you see directly.
Others say it looks strange when they mean something feels strange emotionally rather than visually.
This confusion becomes even stronger in professional conversations where subtle meaning matters more.
Learners sometimes think using seems makes them sound unsure, so they avoid it even when it is the most natural option.
Another problem is that beginners assume looks always relates to truth, while seems relates to doubt, which is not always accurate.
Many learners laugh later when they realize they told someone, "You seem tired," when clearly noticing dark circles under their eyes.
The reverse also happens when someone says, "You look nervous," even though they only sense nervous energy.
This confusion leads to small misunderstandings that do not break communication but affect fluency and natural tone.
Ultimately, the biggest learner struggle is not grammar, but deciding whether they are observing with their eyes or interpreting with their mind.
Sometimes you notice a friend pacing in the hallway and say, "He looks nervous," even though his face shows nothing unusual.
When the unease comes from his actions rather than appearance, "he seems nervous" is the proper choice.
Or you see freshly baked bread on the counter and say, "It seems delicious," even though you haven't tasted it yet.
Visual judgment calls for "it looks delicious" because you're reacting to what your eyes perceive.
You might hear a colleague speaking very quietly and say, "She looks upset," even though her expression is neutral.
In this case, the feeling is inferred, so "she seems upset" conveys your actual impression.
Sometimes the sky is bright and clear, and you say, "It seems sunny today," without even stepping outside.
Since you're judging based on visual evidence, "it looks sunny today" is more accurate.
You could meet someone giving a confident speech and say, "He seems confident," even though his posture is rigid and formal.
Confidence inferred from behavior rather than visual appearance justifies "he seems confident."
Or you notice a living room decorated with colorful lights and say, "It seems cheerful," even though the furniture is old and dull.
Visual cues dominate here, so "it looks cheerful" is more precise.
Sometimes someone stares silently after a joke and you say, "It looks awkward," even though they are smiling politely.
When awkwardness is interpreted from the situation rather than seen directly, "it seems awkward" fits better.
You might hear a hurried voice on the phone and say, "She looks stressed," even though her desk is tidy and calm.
Stress inferred from tone calls for "she seems stressed."
Or you see wet streets and say, "It seems rainy," even though the sky is clear at the moment.
Visual perception makes "it looks rainy" the correct usage.
Sometimes you notice a colleague typing rapidly and say, "He looks busy," even if he is just practicing typing.
When busyness is interpreted from behavior, "he seems busy" is more accurate.
You could hear a serious announcement and say, "It looks important," even though nothing visible indicates it.
Interpretation requires "it seems important" here because importance is sensed, not seen.
And once you consistently separate what is directly seen from what is inferred, your use of looks and seems becomes natural and effortless.
Because looks always points to appearance or visual cues, while seems points to what you sense or interpret beyond the eyes.
Sometimes I hear students say, "He looks tired," when they only notice that he's sighing quietly.
The problem is they're inferring tiredness from behavior, not appearance, so "he seems tired" is correct.
Or they say, "It seems sunny," just because they imagine the weather without looking outside.
Visual judgment is missing here. "It looks sunny" is the proper choice.
Students often say, "She looks happy," when they only hear laughter, not see a smile.
Happiness inferred from sound or mood should be expressed as "she seems happy."
Sometimes they write, "It looks important," when reading an email.
Importance is interpreted, so "it seems important" is correct. Or they see a messy desk and say, "it seems busy," although nothing is happening.
Busyness is a visual impression here, so "it looks busy" is better. They might say, "He seems confident," just by looking at him without noticing his gestures or voice.
Confidence sensed from appearance alone is tricky. Often "he looks confident" fits better visually.
Some learners write, "It seems dark," when they walk into a dimly lit room, even though the shadows are clear.
Darkness perceived visually, "it looks dark" is more accurate.
Students often say, "She seems nervous," just by noticing a wrinkled forehead.
Nervousness inferred only from appearance can be misleading. Use "she looks nervous" for purely visual cues.
Sometimes they write, "It looks fun" about a party they only heard about.
Fun interpreted from a story is not visual, so it seems fun is correct.
Or they say, "He seems angry" by seeing a red face, even though he is smiling.
Appearance alone can be deceptive. He looks angry applies only if the visual cues suggest anger.
Students might say, "It seems messy" when looking at a well-organized room.
Misjudging based on assumption rather than sight leads to wrong use. It looks messy works for visual impression.
Sometimes they write, "She looks worried" when she just frowns for concentration.
Concentration is not worry. Inferred feeling needs she seems worried.
Learners often say, "It seems hot" when the sun is shining but a breeze is cooling.
Temperature sensed versus visual cues differ. It looks hot matches what is seen.
Or they say, "He seems tired" from a photograph alone.
Behavior is absent in a photo, so use he looks tired for visual appearance.
Sometimes students write, "It looks awkward" after reading a text conversation.
Awkwardness is inferred from context, not seen, so it seems awkward is better.
They might say, "She seems busy" when noticing a computer screen full of emails.
Without observing behavior, visual evidence calls for she looks busy.
Some learners say, "It seems scary" about a movie poster, though nothing moves or acts.
Static visuals are judged with looks. Dynamic or sensed fear uses seems.
They write, "He looks serious" when only hearing a serious tone.
Tone is sensed, not seen, so he seems serious is correct.
Or they say, "It seems fun" about a playground just by looking at empty swings.
Visual judgment alone needs it looks fun.
Many students confuse the two when reading descriptions in books.
The rule is simple. Looks equals what you see. Seems equals what you sense, interpret, or worry.
Once learners start applying this distinction consistently, mistakes disappear.
Because separating appearance from interpretation clarifies every choice of looks versus seems.
Sometimes students say, "He looks angry" just because they hear a sharp tone in his voice, even though his face is calm.
When anger is inferred from tone or behavior rather than appearance, he seems angry is the proper choice.
Or they write, "It seems sunny" based on the calendar or weather forecast without seeing outside.
Visual judgment is missing here. It looks sunny fits the actual visual observation.
Learners often say, "She seems tired" when they notice a slow typing speed, even though her face looks fresh.
Fatigue inferred from behavior needs she seems tired, but appearance alone would call for she looks tired.
Sometimes they say, "It looks fun" about a park they only heard about, not visited.
Fun imagined or interpreted requires it seems fun because it's based on inference.
Students might write, "He seems confident" just from a photograph where posture is stiff.
Confidence sensed visually from a static image is tricky. He looks confident is more accurate for appearance.
Or they say, "It seems dark" when stepping into a room with shadows, even though light clearly fills the space.
Darkness judged visually needs it looks dark.
Some learners write, "She looks happy" when hearing a cheerful story, not seeing her expression.
Happiness inferred without visual cues should be she seems happy.
Or they say, "He seems nervous" from a wrinkled forehead, even though he's focused on reading.
Nervousness inferred from appearance alone can be misleading. He looks nervous works only for visual signals.
They might say, "It seems messy" about an organized desk because they imagine tasks pending.
Visual assessment requires it looks messy when judging from appearance.
Sometimes they write, "He looks serious" when they sense a serious mood, not observe expressions.
Seriousness inferred from mood calls for he seems serious.
Or they say, "It seems scary" about a horror poster, even though no movement or action occurs.
Static visuals uses looks, while sensed or interpreted fear uses seems.
Students often confuse the two when combining sight and interpretation in one sentence.
The key rule is looks equals appearance/visual cues, seems equals inferred/sensed meaning.
Once learners apply this distinction consistently, mistakes disappear and sentences feel natural.
And that's why practicing these differences step by step helps you move from confused English to clear and natural speaking.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to Daily English Podcast so you can keep improving your English every day.
See you in the next episode. Goodbye.
Goodbye.